congratulations on a film that is very gripping and a film that works well from a technical perspective, as well as some of the subtleties that are very apparent in the characters that you've built. I want to talk to you a little bit about the technical aspects because obviously the way that the flashbacks have been incorporated through a lot of the jarring sort of jump cuts is a technical tool that is at your disposal to be able to sort of keep the momentum going for viewers. Tell me a little bit about how you chose to treat the flashbacks for the directors, and then for Madhuri, how you felt as though the flashbacks had translated on screen.
Yeah, I'll say quickly, one of our biggest challenges, I think, when we came on board this project was taking an audio play that was in almost entirely phone calls and translating it into a cinematic format. And so I think one of our big tools, like you said, to use was these, I think, flashbacks, but also the way that, as you said, they're designed to both give us information, but also put us into the headspace of Usha, because so much of the film is about her kind of obsession and her dwelling on the past. We wanted to kind of like visualize those cinematically, and so we looked for images that would speak to it, like the Bollywood poster with blood spraying on top of it, and the underwater imagery, things that were both evocative but also spoke emotionally on a primal level to the audience.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it worked so well as part of the translation from one medium to another. These flashbacks are things that I just couldn't do in the audio format at all, but they're so important because they're Usha. It's Usha's story. This is her. We're looking inside her head. So I feel like it really helps us get a better sense of empathy for this character and what she's going through. And I think it really helps build up the dread. And also, just on an aesthetic point of view, they're so beautiful. These flashback sequences are so gorgeous. And I don't know, it's just lovely to see, and especially for an American production, right? It's an American production house that did this primarily, and most of the film was shot in the U.S. It looks so gorgeous, and it looks like Delhi, right? It looks like Delhi. You can't really tell the difference. So I just think they did such an amazing job.
Thank you.
I agree. I think it's very aesthetically pleasing, visually speaking, but also I think the sound that was used, background score sound that was used, was very well incorporated to also build the characters. I want to talk to you a little bit about building the characters and the subtleties that you used. So, for example, you take away the economic independence, you take away the financial independence, you take away and you have sort of stalking behavior that's also highlighted in the film. And we see this quite commonly in domestic violence situations where there's a cycle of dependency that's created by the abuser. Tell me a little bit about implementing those subtleties as the story went on, and whether that was something that because it's not really in your face. It's only when you start thinking about it that you start realizing that a cycle of dependency is being created. So tell me a little bit about how you went through that process to make sure that you were able to insert that in a subtle fashion.
It's a great question. One of my deep dark fears, and it's irrational as most fears are, or maybe it's a bit rational. I've always been terrified of getting into a bad relationship. I'm so deathly curious about abusive relationships, almost out of a sense of self-preservation. Like for some reason, I've always wanted to do that. When I was dating my husband for like the first year, I kept going like, I'm watching you. Right? I kept being like, I wouldn't say that to him, but I was watching for red flags because I'd read so much about it. So this is just like one of my obsessions that, I think artists tend to have like their little obsessions, right? And then they make something with it. So I'm glad you picked up on that. It was something that I identify a lot with the character of Pallavi. So I was thinking to myself, in what circumstance would I get into a relationship like this? What would need to happen for me to get in here? And so that was kind of the situation I was trying to build out. Because I think it is insidious, and I think it happens to so many people, and it happens very slowly, and it happens in ways in which it's not always easy to talk about. Mm-hmm. So that was one of the things I was really interested in exploring through the story.
From a directorial perspective?
Yeah, I mean,
it's something we did a lot of research. Obviously, sort of as men, we're coming at it from a slightly different perspective. And so I think it was interesting for us to, in reading the script and then doing research, and we talked to psychologists and to abuse specialists about what these tactics are and how largely domestic abuse is not physical, that it's mostly psychological, it's mostly
all the things you were talking about, all the things Madhuri mentioned, yeah.
And so it was, so to portray that on screen and also not to push it too far where it becomes sort of a stereotype, like if we show the like wife beater, physical abuse, that's what we're used to seeing as domestic violence, and that's not the reality of it in most cases.
I'll also mention too, I think one of the things we really appreciated about the screenplay was that basically Sandeep comes across like such a great guy for so much of the movie. But I think if you then really like smart audiences have been telling us, like they start to, as you said, like they're like, wait, he's isolating her, he's financially isolating her, he's from her friends, from her family, and it's like they like he's so charming, and I think we like that challenge of fall in love with him even as you realize he's a monster. And I think that's a very tricky balance to walk that I think that Madhuri's script walks really well.
Yeah. Well, and to practice, I made my girlfriend psychologically and financially dependent on me.
Your method director.
Very method, exactly.
I want to talk a little bit about how you address gender roles, again, in a very subtle fashion. Pallavi doesn't know how to cook. That's established pretty early on. The father goes into the kitchen. The father of Pallavi's father, he demonstrates a lot of sensitivity towards the fact that Pallavi's mother has gone through this abusive relationship. He tries to be there for her. There's a little bit about mental health, although it turns out that she's right. I won't give a lot away, but a lot of speak about mental health as well, but very sensitively done. How did you make sure that you address those subtleties in your writing? And was it something that came out very naturally, or was that something that you developed and you inserted in?
The characters and the dynamics in this movie are very inspired by my family. So I'm not a very good traditional woman. I don't fit that mold very, very easily. And it's something that my family has never had a problem with ever. So that's how Pallavi is. And even though her kids are about not being able to make chai, I still cannot make chai without looking up a recipe, but it doesn't matter, to her mother, it really doesn't. And my dad cooks, cleans, takes, my parents, I have a baby. My parents were here at the beginning when he was born, and my dad did so much of the childcare, just without a question, without even thinking about it. He's that kind of person. So that's the kind of family I've grown up in. And it's not a family that I see represented very much. So I wanted to show that. I wanted, this is my family. This is real. This is how we are. We don't follow very conservative gender norms, and it's not a big deal. And there are a lot of Indian families like us, actually. So I wanted to take the opportunity to show that. So it was natural and it was deliberate at the same time.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much for chatting with me. And it was a wonderful, wonderful film. I really enjoyed it from a technical perspective, but also the various subtleties that were very present in both the writing level and both the cinematic level. So thank you so much, and congratulations on a wonderful film.
Thanks so much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.